Welcome to the Ruby Hour, a podcast produced by our company, Ruby Riot Creatives. We specialize in video production and content marketing, and we're based in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm Shelby Ring.
And I'm Madeline Rager.
This podcast is devoted to interviewing extraordinary people doing extraordinary things and nuggets of wisdom that they've learned along their journey. Also, just want to give you a heads up, we have potty mouths and we're talking about inappropriate things. So thank you so much for joining us for another session of the Ruby Hour, where we interview extraordinary people doing extraordinary things in the world and what got them to where they are today. And I have the amazing Sol of Sol Photography.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
With us. He is a legend around these parts. And, a little bit about Sol. So he has been in the wedding photography industry since, when did you open up shop?
2013, I got serious about it, and
it's freaking awesome.
Been riding since.
And a little bit about Sol, I always like to paint a picture. So we filmed and photographed together, I think at the beginning of 2017 was when we first crossed paths. And there was a Backstreet song at the end of the night. We had the best time doing impromptu dance videos, and I knew I had met a new lifelong friend. Yes. So Sol is amazing. He was recently named the best photographer in the world by his mother.
Thanks, Mom.
So Sol, how did you get started with photography?
Well, photography had been something that I just naturally had gravitated to. Somehow during family functions, they would hand me the camera. My dad would say, "Here, take a picture of this," the shoulder mount VHS recorders.
Yes.
Take videos of this, take pictures of that. So it just kind of evolved into doing more of that and just really enjoying it. And so it just turned into a bunch of different things, and not just weddings, but just everything that you can imagine.
It's so cool. I know. I think I read in your past life, you may or may not have been a military contract photographer.
Right. So military contract photographer, this was taking the same photo hundreds and thousands of times over again. Just a standard photo of your soldier coming out of boot camp right in front of the American flag. Just the photo that's on every mom and wife's desk or mantle. So that was a good job. It was fun, but it got monotonous taking the same photo over and over again. So as you can imagine, the itch to do something different and dive into something else kind of pulled me. So
yeah. And now, are you from the Charleston area originally?
No, actually. So that's a three-piece answer to that, because when people ask where are you from, I get confused as to what they actually mean. Do you want to know my ethnicity?
Yeah.
Do you want to know where I was born, or do you want to know where I was raised?
Or where did you previously move from?
Right. So I was born in Naples, Italy, and
what?
Yeah. So I was a souvenir from my dad's deployment there. He was in the Navy. And so I was born in Naples and came to Charleston in 85. So I was about 2 years old.
Aww.
So I was raised here.
Okay.
But my family's from the Philippines.
Okay.
So that's the three-part answer to that.
Three elements of that, yes.
That's right.
And did you get dual citizenship in Italy?
I
because
did.
You were born there? What?
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Is there any cool perks from that?
I mean, I don't really know. I actually had to give my Italian citizenship up when I was 12 or 13.
Okay.
When I naturalized to United States citizenship.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I'm Team USA all the way, 100%.
Awesome.
Almost joined the military, but Dad told me not to.
Okay.
So, thanks, Dad, for putting me through school.
Yes. No, that's so cool. So how did you get into weddings specifically? I always love to ask people, like, we had PJ on here, and he was saying, like, he started off filming weddings and funerals.
Okay.
So what was your journey of how did you get into photographing events and weddings?
Yeah, so, a lot of my friends have this same story of a friend came up and said, okay, you got a camera, can you shoot this? Pretty much the same thing happened.
Yeah.
College roommates of mine were getting married, and they had a small ceremony in a small, tiny church in Marlboro County, South Carolina, in the middle of somewhere out there. And so I think it was like $400, and I had a full day with them, and they loved it, and I loved it, and so that kind of just snowballed into what it is now. So,
that's so awesome. Yeah. So what do you think, as far as like when couples are planning weddings, what's the difference just being in the industry between people's perception of like, oh, planning for this day, and then how it actually unfolds, how it happens? You know, what advice would you give to a couple when they're putting all this pressure into making this day be a particular way?
Right. The tendency is for people to do a comparison thing. They always look online. They always look at what their friends did. I think it's really important to just remember why you're doing it in the first place. And at times when you question the why, you get to figure out exactly, what makes you tick. And same thing with me. If I need to, get a boost of why we're doing something or feel connected, I have to ask, okay, why, So I always tell clients, figure out what you value the most, because some people don't want 180, 300 people at their wedding. Some people would just want to elope.
Yeah.
Some people want a big, huge party with a band and all this stuff. So like really just figure out what you value the most and kind of, silence those voices that are coming in from the outside,
Yeah. You do you, stay in your lane. That's awesome.
That's right.
What about like, okay, from the being on the side of being a person that contributes to a wedding day coming together, and the fact that you're usually on your feet for like, I don't know, like
18 hours.
Yeah, like 8 to 10 to 12, however long, these days are for photographers, videographers. Do you have any secret tricks that have worked for you of, I know that you're like in the middle of like a marathon weekend shoot. We're always texting and like figuring out, are you still hanging in there? Are you doing okay? Right. So, any like secret things that keep you going through such long days?
Yeah, so definitely have to take short breaks throughout the day. Nothing long at all. Just a recap, a regroup. Usually it's right before ceremony, right after things happen. And half the time we need to reload film and do stuff like that. And so that gives us a moment to kind of step off and kind of ask ourselves, where are we at? How are we doing? Just kind of check yourself throughout the day. Also, shoes make a difference.
Oh my gosh.
David Bun DJ, we're like the Cole Haan brothers. We rock Cole Haans because they're like the comfortable shoes. So like you have to wear comfortable shoes. Just stay hydrated. I know people say that all the time. Drink water. That's like probably the number one thing.
Yeah.
Is like just drink a glass of water. But yeah, have comfortable shoes. Take short breaks throughout the day. Very short. It could be like 10, 15 seconds. But you really need to reset yourself and your mind. You
not be on the whole day.
Not be on the whole day. Because when you're on, you're paying attention to your clients. You know this as well as I do. You have to check the temperature. You have to gauge where people are, the timing of things. Everything is on us to shoot these pictures and videos. And so to just step back and say, all right, where am I at? How am I doing? You got this, or like give yourself a quick boost. A lot of the time I do this with my second shooter. We ask each other like, hey, how's it going? Like that small stuff really does make a difference. It makes a huge difference.
I know. I feel like it's such a great thing when you have somebody that's got your back whenever you're photographing or filming, because that simple taking a break, like, okay, post ceremony, all right, you're staying with the bridal party, I'm getting cocktail hour, and then
crucial
having a little moment and maybe snagging an appetizer or two sneakily off of the appetizer plate.
Fingers.
Yeah, but that's something we recently added to our contracts, like just clearly stating, and people have to initial off, like, I acknowledge that our videographers are not robots.
Right.
It's in the official language as robots, and that we're humans, and that we need. So
you get to eat.
Yeah, and the eating and the proper caring and tending to your visual team of your wedding day.
It's important.
So outside of weddings and photographing, what are who are you beyond the camera?
So, I mean, I would pretty much say beyond the camera, I'm just all about my family. I'm with them when I'm not working. And, outside of like how I make the livelihood of taking pictures, we dabble in real estate. My family's got a background in that. My father's a home builder locally. My sister's a real estate agent, and so we all just kind of like fell into that together, which is nice because you get this sense of building something together and tackling, these huge projects together, and so that kind of strengthens what that is to be a son and father and sister, brother. So outside of that, just family and just really, trying to hone the craft, obviously, but it's just trying to balance that. I found that, I think one particular year, it was like 2016, I had shot like 68 weddings total. And that look on your face was
Did you
like
just
how
cry?
I felt.
Yeah.
Got in a fetal position and cried
Holy
all
smokes.
Christmas long.
Yeah.
So I kind of drew some good insight from that and said, okay, let's balance it a little bit and let's focus a little bit more on other things.
Yeah.
So we're there now, and it's a really good place to be. It's really nice.
What about what have you learned in the years that you've been open? I think it's one thing to show up on an event day and you're providing a service, but it's another thing whenever oftentimes you're a solopreneur or a small team like we are, and
one-man band.
Yeah, and how do you balance marketing, sales calls, actually culling, editing the photos, sending them back, managing client relationships? What has worked for you over the years?
Well, I think it's a perspective of understanding that you can't do everything in one day. And especially after I had my son, he's almost 11 now. But when I first had him, it was a struggle to even figure out how to manage him aside from what I was doing at the time, which was nursing school. Shout out to all the nurses out there. But yeah, having a kid and trying to start a business, I think you just learn by getting thrown into the fire and just figuring out what works and understanding first and foremost, you can't do everything in one day. And so when my daughter came around is pretty much, and she's 3, she's almost 4 now. When she came around, then it became managing multiple children. So 2 kids and this business, which has gotten some traction and built up into what it is now. And we still have a far ways to go. And so it's just understanding that perspective of, handle one thing at a time. Don't try to build Rome in a day.
Yeah.
Just one thing at a time.
What works for you practically as a creative? Do you edit and do your post-production at your home? Where do you function the best? And then how do you separate, do you have any good rituals or triggers of when you're like, okay, work is closed, now I'm on family time?
Right. So usually Mondays are usually the day, because we shoot weddings Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. Mondays are usually those days where, excuse me, the rasp is coming back. Mondays are usually the days where I kind of block things off. And I take my kid to the bus stop. We have our breakfast in the morning. We just kind of go through that day together. When he comes back from school and when my daughter gets back from school, we just really try to spend time together. And that Monday and then the rest of the week is kind of dedicated towards kind of the juggling act. People have this misnomer about balancing as if, we're on top of a tightrope and somehow you could balance, but it's more like juggling. And so that's what I'm usually doing throughout the week. And so Tuesdays, Wednesdays, heavy edit days, phone calls are usually made during this time, like during midweek, because the rasp is real strong. After working wedding receptions where you're like yelling at people to look at you and stuff like that.
Directing all day.
Oh yeah, directing all day. The voice has to rest a little bit, so we rest the voice. Luckily, you caught me on a Tuesday. So
on a Tuesday, yep.
Yesterday, the rasp was on full effect. So definitely today's better.
That's good.
But yeah, just juggling that, and just working our way towards Thursday, Friday, prepping for that big weekend coming up. So, just gotta have that family time.
Yeah.
Gotta have it, because kids are, they know so much more than they appear to.
Yeah.
And you can learn a lot from them.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything before I had my kids. I was
so
just
awesome.
wandering.
And how old is your daughter? My
daughter is 3, so she's almost 4, and she's a little firecracker.
Well, and you have to be present to they're growing, transforming humans.
Oh yeah.
So you have to
definitely
have those moments of being in the here and now with them.
Yeah, definitely. The sass and the attitude has evolved.
That's so awesome.
I love her to death, though.
Yes.
She's the best.
That is so awesome. So would you consider yourself more introverted or extroverted?
That's funny, because going through middle school, high school, and college, I was extremely extroverted. Extreme. It wouldn't be unusual to see me in a random place. Like, I used to go down to this coffee shop with my friends, and they would have an open mic night, and we would just be like poetic rhymes, like rapping, that kind of stuff in front of a crowd. Dancing, break dancing when I was a teenager. And now, I'm not saying it's because of the kids, but I kind of equate it to that parallel of having the kids and kind of focusing in on them. Mm-hmm. And, you just kind of evolve into something else. So I don't necessarily know if I'm more introverted, because my job forces me to be an extrovert too. So,
yes.
And I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. So I would say a little bit of both.
Yeah. I would say that's accurate for you too. Just knowing you, and I think it's the roots, the background you have in being a social butterfly that puts people at ease on wedding days. Any event we filmed together or photographed together, that energy is so relatable, and I don't know, I think we find it really fascinating to work with a variety of photographers, because you have a very calming energy on wedding days.
Thank you.
You're sometimes, I don't know, I feel like some photographers can be a little bit exhausting. Their directing style is great. They have beautiful work. But, if you're gonna be yelled at all day like this, oh my gosh, that's so great. That's so great. You guys, and you're 8 hours of that. Just being beside that energy can feel a little bit draining. And I don't know what it's like to be on the other side of the lens being directed. I mean, it is positive, and I appreciate the calm that you bring to the table. And I'm sure that you probably hear that all the time from your couples, that because you're a pace car on a wedding day. Really, you're working with them more so than anybody else intimately through the day.
Right.
And so, one thing that we always love to say is, yes, the service we're offering is, videos, that's the product, but the biggest thing we're bringing to the table is peace of mind, and that we're going to bring our A game and bring, that they're going to feel supported and know they've got someone that if their hair is going to shit, we're going to go over there and help
Fix
them out
it.
and fluff the dress and, just make sure that they look flawless and they feel flawless, because that's the biggest thing, is the experience part of it.
For sure.
And I know that you definitely bring that A game with the Backstreet Boy. That now I'm bridging the gap between breakdancing, all these things, and the cool moves with I don't know.
It's been an evolution.
So that brings me to something that most people don't know about you, is you once pursued a music career between 17 and 22.
Yeah, that was serious.
What?
That was serious. It's weird. It's one of those things that you think you know what you're doing at that age. You just think, and I mean, it was good. I mean, we really could rap. We really could do it.
Okay, wait. Did you have a stage name?
I did. I'm. You want to know? You really want to know this, man? Yes. Oh gosh, stage name. It was Vision.
How do you spell it?
Vision.
So actually, like Vision.
But there used to be a Z at the end of that at the beginning, like Visions, like really like
Visions,
like really rap type, So we removed that Z.
Okay.
And that was what it was for a couple years.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not embarrassed to say it. You know, I can still rap.
Shit. You went for it.
I can still rap a little bit. Maybe after this is
Funny,
over.
you mentioned that you're good at spitting rhymes because we were just talking about doing a surprise video, doing popular songs, but doing it tying into wedding videography.
Okay. Yeah.
Mainly because we are camera hams and we want to act like idiots in front of the camera because we take any moment, any chance we get. We want to
take
act
advantage.
like dorkos. We have a new thing we like to do. If the vibe is right at a wedding and we're, super, in the energy with the parents and the bride and groom and the bridal party, we have a little steady cam that, we're using, but it's got a selfie mode.
Nice.
And so we turn it around and then we parade through the dance floor and we have a good time doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Much like how you and I were setting up the tripod and then secretly dancing across the dance floor. You got
to break it up.
You have to have a good time. You have to have a good time during a wedding day. Yeah. And I know whenever I was starting off with filming weddings, I was trying to match what everyone else, what I thought
right.
I should be doing, right?
Exactly.
What I should wear, what was appropriate, just this, I was trying to look like other people at first.
Right.
And we do that when we're new and before we have confidence about something. And now I feel like the biggest thing we want to do is make people feel at home and
absolutely.
like we're lifelong friends, right?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, I started out with that energy of like high pitch, just like almost screaming at people.
Yeah.
It doesn't really work, for me especially, but it just personality wise, I had to reel that in a little bit and just take a different approach of, calm, assertive energy, and it's not for everyone, but definitely those clients who have booked me, they kind of sense that that's their personality as well.
Yeah.
And so, if you need that, you call me, but different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's right, because I know that there's some couples that that high energy, that strikes a vein with them.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, yeah.
Gotta have it.
I
like that. I like that sometimes.
Yeah.
But for weddings, definitely take that approach of, how can I be of service to this person? How can I be an observer on this day? How can I be a guest at this wedding that just so happens to have a really nice, awesome camera?
Yeah, I love it. So what advice do you have for introverted couples? So if one or both people don't enjoy being the center of attention, how do you approach that?
Well, I've had a couple of these couples, and everybody's different. I would definitely say for introverted couples, if you're in a situation where you have lots of guests and you're still introverted, you need to remember that some of these people came in from far ways, and you have family and people that you just haven't seen in a while. Just focusing on them. The camera tends to be this thing where it comes out and people just go into this shell. I do myself, when cameras get pointed in my direction.
Yeah.
We have this sixth sense, especially, being camera people.
Yeah, that's weird because when cameras are out with me, I just start rolling my shoulders and I just start dancing.
Oh yeah. Just revert back to that clip where I noticed that you pointed the camera at me at that wedding.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wait, me? And so what am I going to do about it? I got to do something for the camera.
And you were like, back, street, back, all right.
Was that the song?
That was the song.
Okay. Awesome.
It's on our Instagram stories.
Nice.
Yeah.
Classic. But definitely for introverted people, I would say seek the photographer, videographer, the team, the planners, and people who are going to, allow you to be you. A lot of the time as photographers and videographers, we feel inclined to direct people in a way that might make them feel uncomfortable. So it's also important for videographers and photographers and other people in the industry to remember that if you have an introverted client, to kind of cater to that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of what makes, documentary style photographers so good at that, because they're just like flies on the wall. They don't really do a lot of directing in that regard. And so if you're an introvert, if you feel like you're introverted, seek the people that would feed that energy and allow you to be you, for sure.
I love that. And
gotta be you.
I think practically during the day, we just had a bride that we worked with where, she's used to being the life of the party. Usually if there's like alcohol involved, there's that liquid confidence. But, I loved that she took a moment to do her. We were in between photos and all the big pictures. It was right before the ceremony was kicking off, and she got a little bit overwhelmed. It was like it caught up to her, and whatever element it was, because I'm like, gosh, like girl brain. She could be, just maybe she was stressed out about. I mean, I know she was stressed out about the dress because she fit into it. She tried it nine months ago, and like all the mental buildup, and it's like we have to acknowledge that. You're not just playing a part in a wedding day. Like, you're still you. Yeah. And it's a very unique day. So she took a moment and was like, I'm going to go take 5. Yeah. And there was, we were at a hotel venue. She took a moment, went into a different room. Nobody was around. No one knew. We knew where she was. Right. But she got to be out of the line of sight. Yeah. And then she came back and she was good. Yeah. But, I think back to I got married when I was very young, total past life. I was married when I was 19, and I'll never forget the experiences that I have to pull from where that wedding day, all I remember, the energy I feel is like my, partner at the time, how frustrated he was with the number of photos we were taking. We almost missed the dinner hour because we took so many pictures. Yeah. And I just remember trying to appease to everybody else around me. Right. That's a default for me, is being a crowd pleaser. And so, I appreciate, and it warms my heart when I see people where, like that bride, she's the absolute life of the party. Like, we filmed one of her sister's weddings. She has one of the best speeches I've ever heard anybody say, like the most lovable human. And she can be the life of the party and still need to take a moment. Right. And to not, just not judge yourself or, I feel like I would feel, in my past, I'd feel very guilty if I was like, I need to step away. I feel out of control.
Right, because all of these people are there.
And they're all looking at you.
They're all looking at you, right, for sure.
And I've heard that with couples where they're like, this is a real thing of if you're introverted, it's like, that sounds horrible to be around, all these different people. And even for myself, I've had one surprise party planned for me, and I was so scared. I was like 25 when this happened. This is like
social
not
anxiety.
It was all of my favorite people I love so much all in one room, and I tend to I like an eclectic mix of humans, and so I did not know how to maneuver through seeing like my yoga friends, and then it was like my wedding friends, and then it was like my redneck friends. Like, I just didn't know where the blend was. So I feel that a practical thing for if someone is that personality type, to give yourself permission to just take a step, take a moment, and that it's not bad. You're not doing anything wrong,
it's not rude. It's nothing. You got to take that break. It's like I was telling you earlier, you got to take a moment for yourself and kind of gather a second and just realize why you're even here in the first place. Yeah. So, I know for myself, that feeling of being overwhelmed, that could be staved off if you just remember the why. That feeling can be, deflected if you just remember why you're doing it in the first place. So definitely take 5 for yourself.
Yeah.
It's like
and And the practical trends of, just in that same vein, I love when couples take that moment to have their meal separate from when the rest of their community, because, most of the time people are being the social butterfly, seeing all their loved ones, and in an element, entertaining, right? You are hosting.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it is that emphasis of it's your day, and yet you're also catering to the people around you.
Yeah.
But in light of wanting to have a day when you do look back and you did feel great and relaxed, it's coming in with that remembering your why of I want to celebrate, and I want to celebrate this person next to me more than I got to appease all these people. They're here, they've traveled. Like, that sounds like a guilt trip of all. That's heavy to carry. Yeah. So acknowledging, think about if you slow down and you take that time for you, switch the roles. Would you not be so happy if you went to someone else's wedding and they did have a social anxiety or just overwhelmed by all the emotions, and if they took time for them and they regrouped and they came back into the room and then they talked to you, would you not be like, oh,
appreciative of that? Yeah, for sure.
Like, that would make me feel so happy to know someone was stepping into their power of, taking that level of self-care to look out for them. Because even though you're sort of the epicenter of this event, I think you oftentimes may be overlooked because it's that momentum of the day. Now you're doing this, and now we have it. The day is broken up into like 15-minute increments, right?
Yep.
So I think giving yourself permission to enjoy and do your pace. If you need to take breaks, and also, it doesn't have to be a set in stone, we have to have these pictures, all these things. Give yourself permission to be fluid on that day if you do need to pivot.
Yeah. That reminds me of when my wife and I renewed our vows. We renewed them last year in the Philippines.
Oh, cool.
We had a phenomenal photographer. His name's Toto.
Okay.
And he's great. And I just remember when we were taking pictures of like getting ready, there was stuff laying all around the room. We were a few minutes late. I didn't have anything to drink. All I had was like a beer. And I just remember thinking to myself, Toto, like I remember thinking to myself and then saying to him, like, hey, give me a second before you take these pictures. Let me clean up behind me and let me do this.
The photographer in you is like the details in the mirror.
For sure. Yep. And he was just like, you know what? He was like, this is life. He was like, it's there. He was like, you can clean it up if you want to, but it's there, and that's not where the focus is anyway. It'd be different if we had stuff all over. It was like a couple of shirts and like a shoebox.
Okay, all right.
And some stuff like that. And so he just reminded me, like, it's there. We're not missing anything. You're all here. Your family's here. You're all safe. Because at the time there was like a monsoon in the Philippines.
Yeah. Wow.
And so, it was raining, and I was kind of, upset about that a little bit. But he recentered me in a way that kind of reminded me, like, okay, you're all here. Nothing's going to go perfect. Nothing is perfect, but whatever happens, this is life. And we got phenomenal photos from that. Shout out to Toto. So
get it, Toto. That's so cool. I know. I think of if I was in the room and if I was getting ready and I saw my things, because my mind goes to like, well, would I be mad if I looked back in my wedding album, like the part in me that wants to control everything and be like, it was supposed to look like Pinterest, like, that, whatever that is that we think this perfect world is. And I know, like, I don't know, I feel like when I shoot, I want to let people perceive that their day was a perfect world, to put it in the best light. But practically I'm like, get all this shit out of here. Like, like, why is there always like 5 bags from different department stores and receipts and like
tissue paper everywhere.
Like, what is happening in here? Which I don't know, maybe it's a wedding day. But to really see that is real life. I will tell you, okay, this is the coolest from a visual artist to another. So we had this wedding the other day where the family got ready as a family. It wasn't separate places. But I feel like I always like to, like, any chance I have to make fun of iPads, I'm all about it.
Oh, yeah.
But
I got
this is a good iPad moment. So the 6-year-old son grabbed his iPad he's normally playing games on, switched to the camera mode, and he started filming his mom getting ready.
See, I like that.
It was amazing.
I love that.
And so then I was filming him, filming her. And he's like, it's quiet, and he's like, Mom, you look really pretty.
Oh, that's nice.
And it was sweet. Like, oh my God, it's going into the highlight reel. Like, yes.
That's the best. That's better than Uncle Bob doing it.
Way better.
Or Aunt Joanne, or
like,
whoever's stepping out in the aisle.
You know, if you're going for, like, you know, your cousin to shoot, give your 4-year-old an iPad and just let them loose. Like, just ceremony.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The new
I love
trend.
that idea. I love that idea. Kids' perspectives.
Yeah.
They have, at times, they have the best perspective.
It was so.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's one of my favorite moments that we've had, like, this whole season.
Yeah.
So what do you think of? You know, you've mentioned that one of your biggest challenges in life or strengths is, you know, learning to gain from losses.
Yeah.
What does that look like in your life?
Yeah. So, you know, people say a bunch of cliche things like when God closes a door, he opens a window, things like that. It's very true. Energy is important in a way that there is never a loss of energy. It's only a transfer. And so you could take this energy, the losses happen, deaths in the family, broken relationships, losing pets. I mean, all of this happens to all of us. I mean, and sometimes they happen all at the same time. And that's when it gets really hard, but that's when you find out really who you are as a person. And so there's so much to gain from it because you learn, you know, take for example, 3 years ago, my grandmother passed away, and she was the person that raised me. And so at the time when you experience this loss, you know, of losing grandma, you think, oh wow, like, she's no longer here. But in fact, that's not the truth. She's everywhere now. Like, she's got the best view now, literally. And so it's one of those things where you can't really dwell, or you can't really I guess float in those feelings. You got to swim, you know. And gaining from loss is just looking at that and saying, okay, well, now that she's not here, now that I can't get her advice in real life, I have to remember what she told me when I was 6 and 8 and 13 years old. So just those types of things, because that energy just continues. Yeah. So it's important to keep that energy continuing by, you know, doing some of the habits that she taught me, or, you know, taking time out to remember her on her birthday, stuff like that. So gaining from losses, we can go on about that, but that's pretty much the gist of how the energy flows for me. You know, likewise with any relationship, you know, you've mentioned before that you had a previous, you know, marriage, right? So it wasn't for nothing. You learned so much, and you would not be the person who you are now if not for that. Yeah. So definitely you've gained so much more than you lost in my eyes. Yeah. You're an awesome person. I love you, by the way.
Thanks. Stop it. So great. Yes. No, it is so true. And I love that the image of, you know, that energy does, it shifts forms, and it never goes into nothingness. And, you know, we recently interviewed someone where it was like our spooky episode where she was like, oh, my grandmother, she's around me all the time, and she has these sort of paranormal experiences of feeling supported by family members that are no longer in this experience. And so you know, I think that's so beautiful of, you know, okay, if I don't have this person practically to call on the phone, where can I go through my index of memories and stories and that energy that you've shared with them, and then channeling that vibe and that you can't stay stuck in that energy. You have to learn to swim with it.
Right. You got to swim. just keep swimming. Yeah. It's like Dora.
Shout out to Dory.
Shout out to Dora.
Oh my gosh.
Did I just say Dora?
You
Dory,
said Dora.
my bad.
That's a very like parent mistake there.
It is a parent mistake.
Yes.
But to cap off the gains from losses too, on the business side of things, we have ups and downs in businesses in business dealings, and there are down years for a lot of us. So on that end of things, when you have a down year, that kind of gives us a chance to recalibrate and see, okay, what didn't work?
Yeah.
How can I evolve, and what works for me and what doesn't work for me?
Mm-hmm.
So
what is something in your business that wasn't working for you and you needed to shift?
I think, aside from like the energy that I was trying to bring on a wedding day, trying to be that high energy person, shifting away from that and going into a more of a calm, assertive, we're just here and we're going to make it happen with what we're given. We're going to do our best to follow the timeline, but just shifting into that perspective, that was big for me. But also just trying to delegate where possible and understand that I can't do everything. It's important to be a team with the videographer, with, the planner, but don't try to do too much. I'm just a guy with the camera. I'm there to take pictures. So, I've got to allow the planner to do their job. I've got to allow the videographer, because you guys have a very similar job, but a very different job.
Yes.
In that same regard.
Yes.
So you guys need a whole different set of imagery and moments to happen.
Yeah.
And so, it's very important to allow you to do your job. And a lot of times really good photographers, they kind of manage that.
Yeah.
And allow that to unfold for, the video cameras to get rolling. But mainly it's just reminding people like, hey, Shelby's the videographer. Mm-hmm. I'm the photographer. We have the same exact cameras, but
look at this camera. Every time I'm like, it's this one over here, that one, not me. This one. Yeah. No, I was just explaining that to somebody last night, actually. And they, just asking the preference of if they wanted video to be with them during the staged group photos, if that was a priority. And the bigger value I saw was like, okay, if you're going to get grandparents, everybody, the kit and caboodle all in a shot, if you want that to happen, we'll film it, but we're just panning side to side or doing a cut in, versus like that's like photos terrain, whereas we could be whisked away and get more of like the cinematic element of like, go get the happy hour, go get like people like getting those awesome little crab cakes that you paid extra to get for people. Don't you want to watch your like families like loving the experience, or just really the storytelling elements, like, okay, our gear looks very, very similar, but we're doing two very different things in this moment.
Team Sony.
Yeah, I know. Sony, love it.
Sponsor me.
I know, right? Love me, Sony. Okay. What about, so in your thoughts on your favorite venues that you've filmed in or that you've photographed in, what about, you said a line about private residences.
Oh yeah, I love the backyard wedding.
What?
It doesn't have to be fancy. I mean, I've done backyard weddings at Isle of Palms and all across town, but those are just the places that it's somebody's home, so they're usually very comfortable in that setting. Yeah. And so, we all love Lowndes Grove. So I'm bumping the mic. We all love Lowndes Grove and William Aiken and, LaGree and, Cedar Room. All these places are beautiful. They're gorgeous. But there's something about someone's house that, they're totally comfortable, and it doesn't even have to be their house. It could be a family member's house that they have frequented when they were growing up, coming here during the summertime. Those have been the weddings where they just break loose. Yeah. And they can just really be in their element. It's one of those things where, like, if you're in Lowndes Grove or you're in these other places, it's beautiful, but it is a production. Mm-hmm. It's a production. And it's gorgeous. And I love those weddings, like where they have all the details and everything. But the home, the family home or the vacation home.
Yeah.
Those are really cool. You just have cool moments that happen there, and there's a connection there from the past that I mean, we were talking about losses earlier. People take losses, and you think about, okay, they might have been vacationing in this house where they were with their grandma who's no longer here, and somehow that house contains the spirits of and that energy. So there's a lot of ways to look at it, but just mainly for that connection level, it's so small and intimate. Unless your private residence is over here on the Battery or something like that, or you know, rocking a $6 million home.
Yes.
Usually it's just a nice little intimate setting. You know, and it's really cool.
Well, I love that you're the first person that's mentioned that. And I was like, wait, what does he mean? And that's so true. You feel so cozy and comfortable, and just thinking about the experiential side of the day, how you want to feel.
Right.
And, just being in your own environment. That's that's so simple, but it's kind of blowing my mind right now. I love that. Well, what would be just a parting thing? What would be, your biggest advice to a couple whenever they're, I just clicked extra pin clicks over here. Okay. What's your thought whenever couples are in the planning process and they're looking at balancing budget, negotiating with family members, if they have mixed, if the groom's family and the bride's family, just what advice would you share to provide support to a couple that's in those shoes?
Yeah, I would definitely say, as I mentioned earlier, you have to look at what you value. And we have people in our lives that we want to appease and we want to make them happy. But just remember that the marriage is not them. It's you and your husband or wife. And so, you want them to get there safely. You want everybody to have a good time, but it's what you value. And just really, really consider who's going to be there for the marriage and not just the wedding. A lot of the time we
snaps for that.
Yeah, I mean, we have so many people that we want to be there, but I just heard this recently. It's like, invite people to your wedding that would be there for the marriage and not just the wedding. I don't know where I heard that from.
That's so good.
But it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
So the people that you value, the things that you value, if you want to spend thousands on flowers or open bar, if you don't want to have an open bar, I would suggest having an open bar, but it's just what you value, and just really, focus in on your spouse or your soon-to-be spouse, focus in on them and what you guys really want. If you want to elope, do it. Run off to Vegas or have a
Vegas is a bucket list shoot that we want to do.
Is it?
Yeah, all the neon lights and the crazy and the.
Well, I mean, holla. I mean, maybe my wife and I could do a vow renewal in Vegas.
Come on, do a new vow renewal every single year at a cool place.
Should I dress up as Vegas or Elvis?
Do it
in Vegas?
Yes, only if you break dance though.
Maybe.
Yes. Sol, this has been amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
How can people get in touch with you?
You can reach me on my website direct, www.sol.photography. Or you can catch me on Instagram, Solography.
Solography. Most clever. Yeah, spell it out.
Yeah, so it's spelled Solography. Solography.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. And for our listeners and for our viewers, we hope that you live a day filled with passion and that you have a story or two worth telling today. Cheers.